Hey guys, how are you doing today? We're gonna be talking about some League of Legends lore in kind of a roundabout way. I'm gonna go down a list in order of my favorite places, or rather up the list, because I'm gonna start at the bottom of my favorite sort of regions in League of Legends and why I feel that way about it, or I'll say in Runeterra, the actual world here. We're gonna start at my least favorite. This might be a controversial one. Ixtal. Okay, my thing about this place is, for one, there's not very much going on there yet. In some ways, it feels a little, underloved. Like, I mean, look at the amount of units here that are from here, and even then, it's debatable because why is Yasuo here, right? When he's Ionian, I'm pretty sure, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm behind on the lore a little bit. I've been trying to, catch back up, but it just feels underwhelming. It feels like there's only a set amount of things going on. It's not very interesting. I guess the whole elemental people in their little world is kind of cool. Like, I like what's going on there. But there's just not enough. I don't think it's interesting enough. I don't really ever find myself gravitating towards reading about stuff from here, which is why I don't really know as much about it. It's just not my cup of tea. Moving on up, we're going to Bilgewater. There are some really cool stories that come out of Bilgewater, but sometimes I feel like it's a little disconnected. It's really easy from media coverage and different types of media with the other regions to kind of learn stuff about it. But Bilgewater is a mess. Okay, for one, it's got Fizz in it, which anything with fucking Fizz is already kind of a disaster because they've tossed around like a fucking hot potato regarding what he actually is, or what the fuck he's even, doing while he's around. Okay, it does have Graves and TF, which I like a lot. The Gangplank rework and stuff was great. But some of it is just goofy, there's a whole overarching plot sort of in Runeterra, and there's a lot happening, but some of these people just don't fit into it, like Nautilus. I love Nautilus to death, but I think his lores are a little underutilized. And I feel that way about a few of the other champions in here, even if they're cool in concept. I wish I could put it higher, but it's just, I don't know. There's something missing. Like, it's cool. It's got pirates and all that fun stuff, and it's next to the Shadow Isles, but I don't know. There's not enough flavor, not enough to bite into. Moving on. Okay, this is gonna be kind of a hard one. This is a toss-up, but we're going here to Targon. Targon, I do think is really cool. I've always been in love with things like the pantheon and all the different gods and stuff in mythology in real life. And Targon very much has that feeling, but sometimes I feel like it's a little finicky with these, and I really wish they talk more about people before they became aspects, or before they were taken over by aspects, I suppose. And just some more into it. Like, some of it's really cool. Like, it's cool stories. Like the whole thing about Soraka basically fucking herself up to help people, and being just a really, as far as League of Legends characters can go, being a kind person, creature, aspect, however you want to look at it. That's cool. And like some of the shit with Pantheon is really crazy. Like how I know that at this point the aspect was killed or whatever, and now it's back to being the guy, which is cool. That's great stuff, but it needs a little bit more. I want them to get more into detail. I want to know more about Taric, if I could, before he became what he is now, before he went up the mountain. Like, a little bit more detail here would be perfect, and maybe even some more. Like, give us a couple more characters that just live around Targon. Like, it's been shown that there's people that kind of live here that aren't up in the mountain, but sure, there's got to be a few standout people. It'd be great to see more characters like that. Maybe even a champion that's just like some dude or lady that lives near the mountain and is kind of cool, does some cool stuff, you know. So more to bite into, something interesting that can help me and other people get more into what's going on in Target. Um, that being said, it does have a lot of potential, and I feel like if with a few more additions and maybe some more stories, it could really pop. But we'll see where they end up. Okay, it was a toss up between Shurima and the Shadow Isles for me, but I'm gonna go to Shadow Isles. Shadow Isles does have a lot of saucy lore kind of built in already. Um, the whole deal with Yorick, sorry, and the monks, um, and him just being the last one and he's stuck here. It's much like Maokai in that sense. Um, that stuff's really cool, and the deal with Thresh and Senna, um, and Thresh just being an overall piece of shit. Although I wish there'd be a little bit more lore, like surrounding all of the people that were here prior that caused all. There is some lore, obviously, and it's pretty good, but some more details. Like I'd like to know more about Thresh before becoming what he is now. Like I'd like to get some really good details. I've been seeing like you know, there's a lot of comics and stuff coming out and all kinds of neat media regarding League of Legends lore, and I really feel like the Shadow Isles could be a good place for that. I would absolutely read an entire comic um, just with all of these guys before the Ruination, you know? I think that would be really awesome. And in general, just as an aside, I like the theme of the Shadow Isles. I think it's a little cheesy for it to go from the Blessed to the Shadow Isles, but I think that's perfect for the world. Um, I think it's awesome. You know, I wish there was more units from here, not necessarily just like the same theme, because you can kind of see they follow a certain pattern. I mean, you can look at this little bar. It's all cool colors, all designed a certain way, except for Elise, but even then, she is to some extent kind of like that. But I don't know. I like it a lot. I'm a big fan, and we're starting to get up into the ones I have less negative things to say about. I just think Shadow Isles could use some more work. Not obviously from a design perspective. I mean, say what you will about League of Legends, their lore design and like their team doing this stuff is incredible. I mean, it's bar none one of I think the most creative worlds within like video games like this. And I'm gonna say like this because there are obviously some standalone video games that have fantastic worlds. But for one that's as expansive as this, and especially for like what it is, I mean, this is a MOBA. It's not really meant. It wasn't originally meant to be story driven, and yet they've made so much. It's really incredible. But moving on, Shurima. Honestly, Shurima got a bump up from me only because it's the origin of the Dark, and I really like Darkin a lot. Um, a lot's happened here, and it has Rammus, who I think is funny. I really like that he's just like rolling around, and that his lore is presented as no one's sure. It's like legends, you know. It's like legends about this thing rolling around in the sand, just around in Shurima. I think that's amazing. I'm sorry, my voice cracked because I'm so excited to talk about him. Um, he's one of my favorite units in the game, but at the same time, this place has a Mumu, which much like Fizz is just a fucking mess that's been tossed around. Is he a Yordle? Is he just like a human child? What is he? Another small issue I have with Shurima, I just have one thing. All the Ascendant, okay, have animalistic properties, okay? To some extent. We know that Aatrox was probably some kind of beetle, right? Same with all the other ones. Some kind of property like that. What the fuck kind of what kind of animal is Xerath? He's ascended, right? But what the fuck is he? He's literally just a ball of energy, right? Maybe like I missed something and I don't really understand how it works properly, but I was pretty sure they had animal like properties once they're ascended. So you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm just dumb, but that's my only thing about Shurima. That's a little, I don't like that as much. I think his design would have been cool if he was like a some kind of owl. I don't know. I don't know. I know it's all kind of based around Egyptian, uh, the Egyptian mythology, but I, maybe they got an owl. I don't know. Would have been cool. Maybe I'm just don't know what I'm talking about, which is very true. Another thing about Shurima is I like the designs of a lot of the units, just in general, except for Amumu. Rest in peace. I like sort of like the details. Whenever I look at Shuriman champions, there's just something spicy about them. I don't know. I liked it a lot. Theme, design, lore. The lore is really good. You can see there's a lot of units here. These guys and 8 more. Technically more, if you think about it. But yeah, I'm a fan. Could use some more details, some fixings, maybe some bringing it up to date if some people, Mumu, someone, one of them, please update a Mumu, make them make more sense. Anyways, moving on. Oh, this is fucking hard. We're up here in the main lore hogs. Oh. Okay. God, this is really fucking hard for me. I'm gonna go to Ionia. My thing, okay, so Ionia, obviously all of these guys up here are fantastic. They've been getting lore for the longest. They've been some of the most developed, right? It's interesting, you look at the top half of the map and the bottom half of the map, and you can see some differences in treatment, I feel like. But, what can you do? With Ionia, it is really interesting stuff. Okay, I love reading about like individual champion lore first before I look at any like extra shit. And I've read a lot with Ionia. And a lot of them have gone through a lot of changes. Like Ari's kind of switched around a little bit on what she actually is and what she's doing. Kayn, I think, is fun. I really like the idea of someone being able to resist the dark and corruption. That's just cool, because if you look everywhere else, that's not really the case. So it's kind of a unique standout. The whole thing with the Vestalians, I know there's Vestalians in other places, but they're very prominent here. Vestalians are a little confusing for me, because I feel like it's too broad of a term for some of them, because Rengar is a Vestalian. Okay, and Rakan and Xayah are Vestalians. They're a little different. Okay, they're a little very different. One is like 99% cat that's just walking on 2 feet, and the other one are like vaguely bird people that may have been designed at like an anime convention. Now, and that's fine, but it'd be cool if maybe there was some kind of separation, right? Like some kind of difference. Maybe, I don't know what you'd call it, but maybe Rengar could be called something else, something closer to like more primal, considering what he is. Just a thought on that. But otherwise, I mean, the whole lore regarding like the nature aspects of Ionia and how everything's connected to nature, and how you can't just go like fucking the land up over here. Like there's actual magical entities that are gonna make you pay for it, and how there's people like Shin, like keeping the balance. It really adds to the mystical elements of the world of Runeterra in ways that some other places do, but I think Ionia does some of the best. Probably in contention with the Freljord in that respect. It's really special. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of different sort of groups within Ionia working with each other, against each other, and in relation to the whole war with Noxus. It's really interesting stuff, and I really would love to see a show filmed, or not filmed, animated, regarding Ionia, kind of like how we've got Arcane for Piltover and Zaun. I think that would be really I think it's a great place for it. I think it'd be fantastic. I could see a lot of great fight scenes and just interesting stuff to watch. But we'll move on. I don't want to stick too long. Next is probably Noxus. The only reason Noxus placed a little bit higher than Ionia for me is I really like. So I've always been kind of a fan of like looking at old school politics, kind of from the outside, like in history books and stuff. And Noxus is a little bit of that. Like there's weird political shit going on. At the same time, it's this really crazy. Initially, when you see them, it's like a warlike people. Like they want to fight, they want to take over, they want to expand because it's kind of rough here, and that's just how it is. It's survival of the fittest a lot of times. But then when you break past that kind of that crust, you get characters like Darius, who is all about fighting, and like, but he's honorable about it. But underneath that is someone who I think really does care, which sounds really dumb in the context, or out of context rather. But it's neat to see how some of these characters have the outside that you can see, like if you just look into it briefly, and then they go much deeper than that, and that's really special to me. I feel like there's a couple of weird people in Noxus, like Kled. Okay, I love Kled. I play a lot of Kled. I'm a Kled fan. I'm a little Kled guy. Okay, but one thing about him is he doesn't make sense to me. And this is kind of on a separate note because it does. I'm going to discuss the gameplay just a little bit because it connects to the lore. The way Kled plays does not, to me, match exactly his lore. The courage bar makes sense, but to me, I don't picture Kled as like a long form fighter. Okay, the way he's very like ferocious. He's an aggressive guy. Okay, and I feel like his abilities don't exactly match. Like his W is really good, his E is good, his Q, I get why it's there, but it doesn't. I feel like there could be something else there. Maybe another thing regarding his axe or something. I get that he needs CC, but I really feel like he should have been a slightly beefier like assassin or something. I feel that way when I look at him. I feel that way when I think about what he does in the lore. Like he's just running around killing people. He doesn't. I don't think of him as like a stalwart guy at the front, you know, taking a beating and stuff. I picture him like running in on his immortal lizard and doing as much damage as possible, and then like he gets out, you know. But in reality, he plays, and he kind of can do that, but he doesn't do damage, really, not too much of it. And he's kind of like, he stays in and he keeps getting back on his lizard, and he sticks in the fight for a long time, and I just feel like that doesn't fit. And then I wish they'd talk more about the Black Rose or whatever, LeBlanc's the whole deal. But it's fine for right now. Cassiopeia, I think, could use some more development. But other than that, I just think it's really a really fun area. Not the stuff they do, not the war atrocities, but just the way it's all designed and all the political shit going on, and everybody's different motivations. It's really fun to look at when you're reading. But yeah, that's enough on Noxus. Moving on to Demacia. Okay, the only reason Demacia is this high because it does have some really fucking boring champions, and if any of you disagree with my rankings, I would especially like to hear it, and I really could see why Demacia would be lower for a lot of people. My thing about Demacia is it has a lot of like intrigue happening. The whole thing with the rift between all the regular Demacians who are not about the mages, and all the mages that have actually been here this whole time under Silas. Once that whole thing started to develop, once Silas came out it became a way more interesting place. And the whole dynamic of Garen Loki, and by Loki I mean he knows that Lux is actually a mage, and him kind of trying to both do his duty as someone higher up in the hierarchy in Demacia, while at the same time protecting his little sister because he's an older brother, I think is really cool. And then Lux's whole, situation is crazy. I mean, being such a powerful mage in a place that literally is created to avoid mages because of the war from a long time ago is nuts. Like, that whole thing is just fun, and I'm also pretty partial. I really like the whole deal with Jarvan and Shyvana and stuff, but I wish they would include dragons and more of the lore. Like, I feel like that could be a pretty big component. Maybe even a couple of dragon champions outside of Aurelion, who's like a space dragon that has nothing to do with them. It could be some really cool stuff. And then obviously boosting the stuff is from here. Xin Zhao's from here. I love Xin Zhao. It's just a cool area. Like, it's so, and all the champions to me are boring sometimes in lore and concept, but just fun. Like, good fantasy fun. I mean, Demacia is like your standard, like, fantasy kingdom bullshit going on, but with more added and more depth now with all the mage stuff. And it's really cool that they're not afraid to display that, like, there's big issues here. And that's one thing League does really well, and I think it's really well shown here. And I'm really excited to see what else they do with it, and maybe to see if in the future, like, they do updates that sort of progress the story. Maybe some of the champions change a little bit. I think it'd be really fucking cool if after long enough, maybe you put Lux in just a little bit older, or like her kit changes because she can use her magic better or something. Like one day when a rework is necessary for some of these champions, it'd be awesome, Or maybe if Garen after a time is taken less of a warrior role and is becoming, more and more of a leader and like buffs his team or something. Shit like that would be really cool. I see a lot of potential here. I think it's fun. Maybe it'll shift up and down on my tier list as time goes on, but we'll see. Next. Okay, so Piltover and Zaun, we're gonna do them together. Obviously with Arcane and all the extra lore we've gotten for here, I mean, come on, there's so much that you could talk about for Piltover and Zaun. There's so much going on. It's just such a cool place, and I like how it contrasts compared to the rest of the world. I mean, there's all this fantasy stuff going on, and then there's just this really technologically advanced place, just smack dab in the middle, kind of. I mean, if you look, it is kind of in the middle, and it's just fun, and all like the champion stories make sense, and they're interesting, and there's so much like to say regarding each champion. I don't feel like there's anyone that has been fully left out of the curve on this one. And depending on where Arcane goes, even though I don't think it's exactly canon, I think it's partial canon. I'm not sure. But like, I know it's coming. Like, we're gonna get maybe some more stuff on Blitzcrank, maybe some more stuff on Zac. It's exciting, and I think few places in the world of Runeterra showcases the sort of diversity that exists in this world than Piltover and Zaun. I mean, there's so many different things happening here with different kinds of people and sometimes machines and creations, and it's spicy. Like, I love it. It's not perfect, but it has so much more potential and like things to give for the lore community. It has to be near the top, I think, on anybody's list, in my opinion. It's just great, and it was honestly going to be number one in a world where I wasn't, as I mentioned earlier, such a huge fan of real life mythology, where I think the next place we're going to go is a little bit more similar to and has a lot of fun stuff in it that's not always necessarily, I think, deep, but just for a fantasy nerd really speaks to me. Um, that being said, I could go on for hours about how great Piltover and Zon is. But I'll move on so I don't babble for too long. But I couldn't express the words to say how much I love this place. All right, here it is. My number one, maybe a controversial pick, considering some of the character designs. But I like that they full sent it, and that the Freljord is a combination of a lot's happened. There's a lot of deep lore here, but it's also just unbridled fantasy fun. Yes, there's a lot of scantily clad people living in the tundra, but to me, there's a few ways you could spin that. I mean, maybe it speaks to sort of how hardy they are and how used to this they've become. I mean, they've lived there, generations. So maybe they've just gotten a resistance. That's what I'm going to tell myself, even though they have character lines sort of talking about it. But it's just such a fun, interesting place, and there's so much, like, for each unit is interconnected here. There's a lot going on, and they're all involved. And some of them are more lore involved than others. Like, some of them are just fun, and like Braum. Him taking Ornn's Voldor and just using it as a weapon, and he's just this big buff guy in the Freljord. It's just cool, and the whole thing with the different units that are involved with the True Eye stuff, that's cool. Design-wise, they're all interesting. I like how they're, for the most part, Ashe is a little goofy. And Tryndamere, I think some of the other ones could use a touch-up too. But it's more like touch-ups. It's not an issue in concept. I think they're all just fun, and it's just great. Like in Trundle's story, even normally, like a character like that, just a funny troll out in the Winterlands, would be put to the side. But even his story is fun about how he wants to be the best troll he can be, the king of trolls, and he's using like trickery and deceit to do it. And that's really cool. It's not just a bunch of big guys bonking each other with sticks. I mean, obviously he's a big guy, and he can do some pretty good bonking. But I love it. It's one of my favorite stories in the game. And with Nunu and Willem, like the dynamic between those two is really cool. You don't see it anywhere else in the game, really. Like, these units are, lore-wise, I think, very inspired. I'm sorry if you hear my girlfriend screaming. She's playing Dead by Daylight. Very spooky. And the whole thing with the different tribes and their issues, and then Volibear's tribe of weird sort of eldritch bear people that he's sort of using for his means, or for his goals. I don't know. Fucked up that phrase. But that's all just cool. And then Udyr's sort of fight with himself, and then his interactions with Lee Sin, and how he's a very spiritual character that is also Sejuani's dad. Like, there's so much interconnection happening. And then what, Tryndamere and Ashe are married, getting married, can't remember. And then the whole deal with Lysandra and the witches, and then like the fucking void creatures that are just being held back by fucking ice. I'm assuming true ice. I would imagine it's not just plain old crispy frozen water, but like, it's just, I love it. And I feel like we'll go back to the middle here. We're gonna talk about everything as a whole. So, as a whole, I love the world of Runeterra. I've stumbled a little bit on my words here, so I feel like I haven't gotten across everything I wanted to about each region. And while that is my approximate list in order, none of these, I think, are bad to me, except for Bandle City. They could work on Yordles a little bit, but as a whole, I love this world. It's so well done. And even though it's taken a little bit of a backseat in recent times, I really hope it picks up. I want to say nothing but support for them in that goal, because, wow, it is just fantastic. A lot of games tend to push this shit to the side. It's just a background note, like, God knows that in Dota, the lore is not a strong suit. But here it's an ever expanding world that we're learning more and more about as we get different pieces. And that is just, oh, it's so good. Um, and I could make a 7 hour video about this shit. And in fact, I've actually started learning how to edit, and I want to make a combination of little lore pieces and maybe discussing some plausible future lore for certain champions in detail. And then also just some goofy stuff, maybe making fun of certain champions lightheartedly, of course. But yeah, God, it's such a fantastic bit of writing for here, all these different regions. And if somehow any of the writers ever see this video for any reason, I just want you to know that this is a fantastic job that you've all done. Just even if the game shut down, I would still always probably be interested in the lore of all these different characters. I mean, God, I hope they do more. I really, really do. But this has gone on for too long. Thank you guys, anyone who watched or listened. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Hopefully I'll be able to get out some more fun content for you soon. See you next time.